One God, amen. Wait, did you want to keep singing? Okay. So for those who don't have Bibles, there's extras here. Thank you. So for those who haven't been here for a while, welcome. For those who have been here, welcome as well. So we're continuing Esther, chapter 8. So we're almost done with the book of Esther. And I don't know about people who have been following or people who've read, obviously, the book of Esther before. But I don't know if this happens to you. But sometimes when I'm studying like a certain book in the Bible, like if I'm following it, I see things through the lens of the book throughout, like we've been doing this now for about 8 weeks, right? This is the 8th chapter. So it's been like constant on my mind. Like certain things happen and I compare it to Mordecai. Certain things happen and I compare it to this king. Like just weird things, you know? And one of the things that have been obviously in the news, the only thing in the news, it's the election and what happened this past week. And so without going into too much politics, one of the things that I really felt this week was that we can't depend on people in general. You can't, I felt like for the past 2 years, this whole campaign, we've had to depend, we were listening to both sides. Personally, I was watching the comedy version of what they're saying. I really enjoy just seeing all that part. And the whole point was it was this constant battle between groups of people, ideologies, and it came down to two people, and we're basically, as a country, deciding to say, you're in charge. And I just felt like, with all the stuff that's happening, I felt like God was kind of telling us, you can pick a person all you want, but I'm in charge. Similar to the story of Esther here. Something that we keep repeating week in, week out, that the story of Esther is a very unique story because God is not mentioned one time in this book. Not once. It's the only book in the Bible. God's not mentioned. It kind of feels weird. But God is there. He's very, very active. God's hand is invisible, but doesn't mean it's not there. And we compared it to a movie or a mini-series, right? So these 10 chapters is like a series, right? So usually a new series would come out, and week after week there's an episode. And I feel like this is what's going on here. It's like this Esther, the mini-series. And God is the director, and He's moving pieces. So for those who haven't been attending, I highly recommend just reading and catching up for next week. It's a quick 7 chapters. We're going to read the 8th chapter here today. But it's really cool to see how God even uses negative things for His glory. And it's a reminder, even with all this chaos, regardless of which candidate you want, it doesn't matter. We can all agree that the country is in chaos. And what we have to always believe is that God is in charge. And we have to treat Him like He is in charge. So, as a side note, let's try to keep the country in our prayers. Let's try to keep President Trump in our prayers. Let's try to keep all of this craziness that's happening over the past week and will continue to happen in our prayers over this past, over these next couple months specifically. So that being said, we've hit we passed the peak of the story. So can somebody tell us what we covered last week, for those who are here? So we're on chapter 8 now. So chapter 7, a couple of interesting things happened. Does anybody remember? For those who are here. So basically, last week, we were talking about how it reached a point in the story where, just really quick, I'm not going to go through a summary, but there's a decree that the king passed because of his advisors, because Haman, his vice president, his second in charge, got disrespected by Mordecai. So just main characters. Mordecai was a godly man, disrespected the king by not bowing to, not the king, Haman, by not bowing to him. Haman lost his mind, he told the king, the Jews are going to revolt against you, you need to take care of them. So he sent a decree that said all Jews should be destroyed. Queen Esther was in there, and she is a Jew. So now, fast forward to this point. Just this last chapter. Fast forward. Now, Queen Esther realized she has a big role in this, so she went and told the king, "Hey, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you." And she appeared. She went to the king, and they had a party. She threw 2 parties for the king. The second party ended with her telling Haman, her telling the king, because the king's like, "Okay, what do you want? You only threw parties for a reason. Like, what are you trying to get out of it? You know, when you're trying to be nice to somebody, like when we used to go to our parents, and we say, like, you know, I help my mom with something, and when I'm overly nice, my mom knows I'm up to something and that I need something." And that's exactly what Queen Esther was like, doing some nice things for the king, and the king's like, "Okay, what do you want?" And she's like, "Nothing. Come to my party tomorrow." He goes, "Okay." The next time he went, he asked her again, and she told him, "Haman, Haman pushed you to send this decree to kill all the Jews." Now, we're going to see here, so Haman was eventually killed by his own demise, basically, right? He created those gallows to kill Mordecai. He ended up dying in them. Okay. We're going to see here how God doesn't just take a bad situation and turn it good. He makes it beyond our understanding good. And we'll see in this chapter what I mean by that. So if somebody can read from chapter 8, from 1 to 8. Someone can read for us. Esther. Yeah. Esther chapter 8, verse 1 to 8.
On that day, King
Ahasuerus
gave Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. So the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther appointed Mordecai over to the house of Haman. Now Esther spoke again to the king, fell down at his feet, and implored him with tears to counteract the evil of Haman the Agagite. and the scheme of which he had devised against the Jews. And the king held out the golden scepter towards Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king and said, "If it pleases the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seems right to the king, I am pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to annihilate the Jews who are in all of the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that will come to my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my country?"
Okay, stop right there.
Yeah.
We'll stop there. What is going on right now? What just happened? So Haman just died. Okay? We just saw in the end of last chapter, Haman's dead. So the king gives Mordecai Haman's house. Giving somebody's house is a level of saying you're respected to that point, to that level. So Haman wasn't just some guy that worked in the house of the king. He wasn't just a servant of the king. He was second in command. So he's elevated Mordecai to that point. Again, we see the reward that Haman's been getting. It's kind of like an upward slope, this whole book. Now, interesting thing here. We're 8 chapters in. And this is the first time the king found out that Esther was Jewish and that she was related to Mordecai. This is the first time. Why is that important? Why do you think that's important? So, but she was saving him up till now.
No, so it's declared.
Huh?
The king's declaration to kill all the Jews.
Well, yeah, but he had already agreed that he was going to remove it. Why did she reveal herself now?
She's willing to take the sacrifice.
Exactly. She's explaining that she's connected to this. She's connected. So, something beautiful about Esther is that regardless of the situation, she exposed herself. She exposed herself. She was quiet when she had to be quiet. And she revealed herself when she had to reveal herself. Now, in our life, we reach points like that as well. There's certain times where we need to stand up and kind of show that we're Christian by our actions, and some we stay quiet. Did it change who Esther was, whether the king knew or not what she was? It didn't change. She was Jewish. It didn't matter. But the beauty of this, it shows us that we have a role. We have a role, and we could make a big impact regardless of the situation. Now, we see here, Esther spoke again to the king, fell down at his feet, and implored him with tears to counteract the evil of Haman the Agagite and the scheme which he had devised against the Jews. She wanted to make sure that, because the king, how did he respond after Haman died? He didn't go and do the decree right away. His first order of business was, okay, Mordecai, you take over Haman's house. Esther's like, no. Forget all this. This is not important. Again, it shows that Mordecai didn't care, and Esther didn't care about their worldly, materialistic stuff. Regardless of the situation. If you look throughout the Bible, you see that it's not about. He wasn't at the place of, he didn't need to be recognized here on earth. As Christians, we don't need recognition here. Recognition here on earth is just like kind of extra, like it's like a little gift we get. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Mordecai is at the king's court where he's been this whole book, or in Haman's house. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we live in a small apartment or we live in a mansion. It doesn't matter, but what matters is what Queen Esther, she's like, you're not getting this point. Right? This is one of the times, I guess, the king's not drunk, right, throughout this book. But we see here, she's on her knees, and she spoke again to the king, fell down at his feet, and implored him with tears to counteract the evil of Haman the Agagite and the scheme which he had devised against the Jews. Something interesting. What was the original scheme? To kill all the Jews. On a specific date. Was this negotiable?
No.
This was a decree. And decrees do not... There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
And by the way, as per the law, the king himself, he cannot be changed.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. But this decree is serious. The beauty of this, it shows, like, personally, I get discouraged. I'll admit, it's group confession. I get discouraged. When I feel like there's something that cannot be changed, I'm hands off. Like, and sometimes that's lack of faith. Because I see it as like, okay, this is a law. It's not going to change. What am I going to do? Esther and Mordecai never stopped. They never stopped. You know, like that feeling of like, oh, I wish I got there before this thing happened. Like, I wish we talked to the king, and maybe if the king knew that his wife, the queen, Esther, was Jewish, he would have just stopped the decree from the beginning, and we would have saved everything, and it would have been the best 2-chapter book ever. But instead, it continued. And no one knew. No one knew that he was Jewish, and then he did the decree. I would have hit a point where it felt like, we missed it. We missed it. You know? Like, there's nothing we can do. Some people felt during this election like, we missed it. There's nothing we can do. But again, just like we said in the beginning, regardless of it's the election or this book, the invisible hand of God is there. God is the director. Doesn't matter who the president is. Doesn't matter how powerful this king is. God is the director. So we see the side by side, the parallel lives that's going on right now. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The old decree wasn't an optional thing. That on a specific date, all Jews in the world must die. It was a command by the king, including Queen Esther, Mordecai, everybody. You can't make exceptions. Okay, now, and the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king and said, if it pleases the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seems right to the king, and I am pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to annihilate the Jews who are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that will come to my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my countrymen? Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and Mordecai the Jew, indeed, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hanged him on the gallows because he tried to lay his hand on the Jews. You yourselves write a decree concerning the Jews as you please, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For whatever it is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's signet ring, no one can revoke. This is a big deal. This is a huge deal. What just happened? The king gave permission Esther to come up with a decree. This shows us also the beauty of God, in the sense of that, can God do whatever He wants to do in the world? Like, can God why did God allow the apostles to do the miracles? Why didn't He just, when the apostles raised people from the dead? Why were people involved? Why couldn't it be just God just doing it? Why did God need the little boy with the 5 loaves and 2 fish to feed everybody?
Show His ability, to show his power.
To show whose power?
God's power.
God's power, but
And the weak could be anything.
exactly, yeah.
I was going to say, and this is just pure speculation,
Mm-hmm.
but that He wants us to participate. As He said, He gives us the authority, so He wants us to participate as we're being deified to become like Him.
Absolutely. Perfect answer. He wants to show His power, but He wants to show His power through us. We have God inside of us. It's something that we forget, because it's not talked about a lot. We have God inside of us. It's a concept that is forgotten. It's a concept that is ignored. It's a concept that we don't realize the power. The beauty of this is that God uses us, He allows us to be used in order to be blessed. So God could make anything happen. But God uses us to do stuff. So, for example, a family's in need. A family's in need. They're struggling, whatever the situation is. Why is it important for us to go and help as much as we can? God could just do it. But the beauty of God is His whole creation, His whole plan in life is for us to participate in salvific actions, in life-giving actions. So this is the same thing that happens here. Why can't the king just come up with a decree?
Because He's expecting Esther to fix it herself.
Why? He could, right? Could he? Yeah, but He wants Esther to do it. It's the same thing. Sometimes we feel like, it's not my responsibility, God, you do it. God says, okay, if it's not your responsibility, you're going to miss out on the blessing. One thing I learned, and it really just changed my view on service. Any type of service, any type of volunteering, any type of service, any type of anything. From picking up something off the floor, to Sunday school, to coaching a basketball team, to you name it. Any type of service, what I learned is that service is an opportunity to be blessed. If I don't do it, I'm missing out. Is it going to get done? Absolutely, it will still get done. The next person in line. So here, it shows us that I'm not comparing God to this king, but we see resemblances in power and authority. Same way God is powerful and authoritative, He allows us to be a part of it. So He's given Queen Esther this chance to write this decree, this brand new decree. Okay? So now, this decree happens. Esther's working on this decree. So if somebody can read from verse 9 to 9 to, let's say, 14. Go ahead.
So the king's scribes were called at that time in the 3rd month, which is the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded to the Jews, the satraps, the governors, and the princes of the provinces from India, Ethiopia, 127 provinces in all, to every province in its own script, to every people in their own language, and to the Jews in their own script and language. And he wrote in the name of King Ahasuerus, sealed it with the king's signet ring, and sent letters by couriers on horseback, riding on royal horses bred from swift steeds. By these letters, and the king permitted the Jews who were in every city to gather together and protect their lives, to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the forces of any people or province that would assault them, both little children and women, and to plunder their possessions on one day in all provinces of King Ahasuerus, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. A copy of the document was to be issued as a decree in every province and published for all people, so that the Jews would be ready on that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. The couriers who rode on royal horses went out, hastened and pressed on by the king's command, and the decree was issued in Shushan, the citadel.
Okay.
Susa.
Shushan. Yep. Okay. New decree is being written. The new decree is on its way out. What's different about this decree?
Then what?
The first decree.
Oh,
From the original, yeah, the one that the king wrote.
Haman.
He didn't write the decree, but he influenced it. But the king wrote it, because the king has to write the decree. Here, the king said, Esther, you write it. The first decree. He can't write the decree. The king. Oh, same concept as this. Yes,
together.
but the king approved it.
By the way, from historical point of view, he cannot change the decree. Even the king.
I know.
What happened here? The king proclaimed that Haman, he did the fake one.
So he didn't. It's not that it's fake.
Yeah, but that's what.
This
what
is
did,
the
what
new
happened.
deal.
No, but
You got a new deal.
the way he described it, the way he did it, it's.
Because here, as Daniel chapter 6, verse 12, it said that, O king shall, 12, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which is not altered, cannot be changed.
It's not. The decree cannot be changed.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why the second decree, it's against the first one.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not about changing the decree. A decree cannot
This one
change.
supersedes.
So a decree, yeah, exactly. A decree is a command, an order, you think of
mandate.
Yes, a rule, a mandate, whatever. So all of these things, that's what a decree is. Now, they cannot go back and change it. They can't go and have like an amendment to this, modify it, edit it, anything like that. But what they can do is add another decree.
Amendment.
No, it's not an amendment. It's another decree altogether. You see my point?
Supersedes the old one.
Yeah.
The issue here is the second one is totally against the first one. Opposite.
Well, it balances out like that.
Second one's God's
Yeah.
will.
This is against the law. What happened exactly, as mentioned in Esther 16, that's which is not in this book, in the second book. The first one was faked by Haman.
I know what you're saying, but what the point is, there was a decree that was sent. They received it.
Yep.
People received this notice.
How much time was it between this one and then this one? How long did that take?
It doesn't say.
Couple of weeks? Or?
No.
Longer?
There was a lot that happened in between.
I missed it.
Remember, we know
3 days.
3 days for the fast, and
three parties.
yeah, two parties. Yeah, and then the death of Haman, and then the written of this.
Almost a week.
Yeah, we don't know exactly.
Hell of a month.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been a rough couple of. But the
Now
beauty
that Trump
here.
is in the office. Never mind.
The beauty of this is that we see God taking. So what did the first decree say? I asked this, but I just want to see the look at the extreme difference. How God could take something. What was the first decree?
Kill them.
Kill all Jews.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you were Esther or Mordecai, and you have the authority now to come up with a new decree,
Yeah.
what would you do? What would you say?
How would you word it?
Yeah. What would you say?
Give them the right for self-defense.
Huh?
Self-defense.
Yeah,
See, that's exactly what happened.
Justified.
But that's what happened. What you said is what happened. For me, I would have said the second decree would be like, just kidding. We're not, no one kill anybody. Let's just live in peace and harmony. Let's go back to normal. But that's not what happened. It took an extreme turn. It said, Jews are called to defend themselves, protect themselves, assemble, gather,
Right.
and anybody who tries to kill them, you have full authority to kill. And no one's allowed to kill them. They're allowed to kill. So let's read the decree again, just so we can go.
8:11, right? The king gave granted
By the
city the right to assemble.
Yeah, by these letters the king permitted the Jews
destroy and kill and
and annihilate
any armed forces of any nationality or province that
would assault them. Yeah.
It's the same thing that's happening right now in Israel.
But
Same thing's happening right now.
And then to take their what? What did they take, Jacob? What did they take after? Not only do you win the battle, but what do you win? Their possessions. So this became like I remember, for those who were here in the beginning of the book, when we saw that Mordecai didn't bow and this decree happened, we're all just like, why did this happen? Go ahead.
Haman was to kill. God's edict here is self-defense.
Yes.
Somebody coming to attack you, they want to kill you, then kill them. Don't go out aggressively killing people.
But look at exactly.
God is against murder.
Sure, but listen, Jacob.
God is not a murderer.
But here's the beauty of this is, let's go back to before this book even started. Were the Jews in a better place then or now? Now. Why? They're protected, and now there's a decree that protects them. It's like the decrees don't have like
they have a homeland.
an ending time. Like, they're protected. So the beauty of this is sometimes we can look at a situation and we say, oh man, we're in trouble. And I just feel like God planned for this chapter to be the chapter this week because of all the craziness that's been happening in the news. And I feel like regardless of our role, regardless of our feelings, I don't care which party. I don't care, Republican, Democratic, Libertarian, Green Party, right-in. I don't care who anybody voted for, or the whole country. The beauty of reading a book like this is knowing people are not in charge. People are not in charge. God is in charge. But God is in charge, but He allows us, like, we have to go to Him. We have to tell Him. We have to plead
with Him.
Like Esther's a queen. She's on her knees crying and pleading and imploring for this decree to happen. Even after He said He's going to do it. Still, when I say let's pray for the country, I'm not talking about just adding it at the end of the prayers as a hey and
by the way.
By the way.
Yeah.
Like, and as an addition.
Yeah.
When we pray we really need to pray.
Yeah.
We really need to pray because we know that He's in charge. We know that God's in charge. I don't care who is in the presidential chair. We know who's on the throne.
The real throne.
The real throne. So in this situation, we see that no matter how bad things actually look, the Jews were about to die. Every single Jew, we wouldn't have the rest of the Bible would have been deleted. There would be no Jews. That's it.
No legacy.
No legacy. That's it. Like
wipe out.
It would have stopped here. No more. This would have been the Bible. But the beauty of it is that God takes something that's so horrific. God takes a situation that's so bad, and He transforms it. God is a transformative God. We have to always remember that. This story is a story of transformation. From beginning to end, we see things that made no sense. And there were some weeks that I know that you left here and we had some cliffhangers. And we didn't know what was going to happen, unless you cheated and read it ahead. But for the most part, yeah. So, but that's the beauty of it. We see God's hand moving pieces around. Yeah.
This thing's been going on for a while. I did some research on Esther, and I found out that this king's grandfather was the one that conquered Babylon.
Yeah.
And the Jews were very instrumental in doing that. They actually were spying for him. They opened the gates for him.
Well, that's why He's okay with them.
So his grandfather honored them to go back to the land. They took all their gold at the temple back, gave it to them.
But so
Jews were in good position.
And who's Haman's ancestors?
Haman's Meleka, 1,000 years before that.
And we said what about them?
Well, they wouldn't let the Jews go by through Egypt.
There was a clash.
They blocked them. They killed them. And Haman didn't understand why he hated him so much. But, his DNA went back to Malachi.
Thank you, Jay.
That's why he has such an anger and a hate for them. Even 1,000 years later, he's still raging. I mean, it's just amazing. The evil force, how it just stays with the generation through bloodline.
Agreed.
So now this king here, Abuna, excuse me.
Go ahead.
This king here, I did a research on him too. He happened to be a very, very bad-tempered king.
Well, he was always drunk.
No regard for
he was always drunk. Since the beginning of the book.
He was. The book starts with a feast. They had a big feast.
Yeah.
And the feast was because they were going on this military mission all the way to Greek, trying to gain some of the land that they conquered that they
we talked
in the
about
first
that.
place.
Yeah, we talked about that.
So when he brought all these soldiers back, they said, when we go back to the house after we do our battle, there's going to be a big party, everybody going to, all that. And the story says that there were a bunch of engineers. They made a bridge over this river to go across. And then there was a storm and the bridge collapsed. He was so upset. He had 60 of those engineers killed on the spot.
So, but Jacob, here's I know. But here's the beauty of it. No matter how crazy or how bad a person is, can God's glory be shown regardless?
Even more so.
Even more so. So that's what I'm saying. God is not limited. If you learn anything from this story, God is not limited.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
300 years God's been waiting for this.
Sure.
The Jews' popularity is being declined towards diminishing. Now they're hiding inside the crowd. But now Haman wants to get rid of them.
But here's now, let's see what the result of this is. Okay? So if somebody can read the last 2 verses, 15 to 17. The last 3 verses.
So Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, with a great crown of gold and a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness, joy and honor. And in every province and city, wherever the king's command and decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a holiday. Then many of the people of the land became Jews, because fear of the Jews fell upon them.
How did they end up feeling? Joyful. It's extreme celebration, just like outside right now.
They have no idea what's going on in here.
They're excited as well. One of the last couple of one of the things that happened as well is, so in every province and city, wherever the king's command and decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a holiday. Then many of the people of the land became Jews because fear of the Jews fell upon them. Look at the extreme. What did this decree even do? Not just save the people, it added more believers.
Yeah.
Like, to me, this is incredible. You go from, when you hit rock bottom and you win the lottery. Like, it's just, it's such an extreme situation. Now, people they went from the fear of being Jewish
to being proud,
to wanting to be, like to doing everything in their way to be Jewish. The Septuagint translation actually doesn't say they converted to Judaism, that they were circumcised. So that they took every step, and that they believed in God to a point.
Believe in Jewish God.
They believed, and they believed in the Jewish God. They left paganism or whatever,
Right.
But they believed in God.
Zoroastrians.
They believed in God for the point, for the reason of they saw His work.
Yeah.
They saw His work.
Power of their
They
God.
saw His work. They saw they were about to die. Remember, do the Jews at this point in all this land know what's going on here?
No.
Do they know like the background story?
No.
No.
Probably. Well, when the decree traveled around, it didn't travel
He
around.
means
No, but they get the decree.
what's going on in the castle and all that. It was
no,
a power
but
struggle.
Jacob, the decree when it was passed, I mean, it's a letter. Think about the distances. Also, Ethiopia to India.
But the letter didn't travel on its own. I mean, the story followed as well.
I like that one.
Yeah, I mean, the story could have followed, but as far as for example, here, we can take it as the story followed with them. But regardless if the story followed or not, the rejoice happened in their salvation, in their anytime. This is a reminder for us that they're not happy about they didn't get excited because they got new possessions. They got excited because they were saved.
They were free.
They were not free. They were actually, like, they went from death to life.
Persecuted to be
So now,
citizens.
But that's a reminder for us. Like, we should feel this same joy. And what converted these Jews? Did it say, like, they had anything happen? What converted? What was the factor that allowed non-Jews to become Jews in this last couple of verses?
They put their trust in their God.
But what translated? What? Huh?
They were delivered from
Fear
death.
of the Jews. Okay, and what else?
Esther's prayer.
Esther's prayer was triggered a lot of the actions, but it didn't. I don't think she was praying that more people become believers.
Seeing their strength and their lack of fear.
So here it says, in every province and city, so the Jews, it says 16, the Jews had light and gladness, joy and honor. And then it says, in every province and city, wherever the king's command, a decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a holiday. And then it says, then many of the people of the land became Jews because of fear of the Jews fell upon them. They saw their joy. They saw their joy.
Yeah.
I don't take this verse as they were scared. The fear of the Jews as if like they were forced to convert. It's not about forcing.
Yeah.
So the fear meaning like
because of the fear.
Because of the fear, like
because
similar
of
to
the faith.
Yeah, like because of, like I looked at it as they saw people rejoicing. They saw people happy. Like what is more contagious? Contagious. What is more contagious? People who are sad or people who are joyful?
Blessed.
Like where do you want to be? Like let's say there's 2 rooms here and we're sitting in the we're sitting in the foyer right here in the lobby area and I say hold on and I say on one side it's sadness and there's condolences on one side and on the other side there's a huge party.
Jumping up and down.
Which side are you going to lean more towards?
Whoever's got the best food.
The party. The party. You're going to go to the party. You're going to go to where it's just a lighter mood.
The action is.
You're going to go to where there's a lighter mood, a happier setting. That's how we all are. That's how we all are. Now, this is something I want to say. As Christians, I think that this is where we fail. This is where we fail. Because as Christians, we do not tend to be so happy. I'll tell you another small confession. Growing up, my parents used to force me to come to church, just like any kid. I didn't like...
Where is he? When you were the little kid's age.
Older than the little kid. But he's Daniel as well. Older than the little kid. So I didn't like coming to church. I didn't like coming to church. My parents forced me to come. Okay? And one of the biggest reasons is because I knew that if I was going to take my spiritual life serious, it was a commitment. Just like anything. It's like entering a marriage or entering whatever. Like any
military order.
Jacob, stop interrupting.
Okay.
So, one of the things that happens is this commitment in that same idea, you have to really sacrifice. You have to do something about it. Like I can't just say I'm Christian and not do anything. So, I was nervous because I looked around when I was at church, when I was younger. Not this church, it was in New York. But I saw people and I'm like, and these are the people who are at church every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you name it, anything going on in church, they're there. And I looked at them and I was like, they seem miserable. They seem so sad. And I'm just being honest. I felt like in my mind, when I was younger, I thought being a Christian meant I had to be boring. I had to not have a social life. I had to not have fun. I couldn't do this. There was too many things that conflicted. That's how I felt. Yeah. What changed my life in that aspect is seeing people that are normal. Seeing people that had a good time. Seeing people that went out and enjoyed their life. But for God. They lived for God. And here, we see the same thing. We see, it didn't just say, and the Jews were happy. Amen. It said the Jews rejoiced, and they had a holiday, and they were glad, and they had a feast, and it became their lifestyle. Were they still Jews? Absolutely. They were still godly people. And I want us not to get caught up in Jews and Christians. Just at this time, godly people. That's all they were. So godly people back then, because why? It goes back to what this decree meant for them. That their lives were saved.
Yeah, they were delivered.
Delivered. Same thing for us. As Christians, we are Christians. We're able to be Christians now. We're able, the door to heaven, life with Christ is possible now because of the cross. Because of the incarnation, because of the cross, and because of the resurrection. Those three things that happen allows us. The problem is we're not rejoicing. The problem is we're just we're hiding. Look at how not hiding they were, how exposed they were, throwing parties, feasts, and everything, to the point where people wanted to be just like them. Mm-hmm. As Christians, that's what we need to do. We need to be an example of, we need to be that room that's exciting, that room that's joyful, so that people can see our good works and glorify our Father who's in heaven. Mm. Yeah.
This situation here is a lot like Christmas celebration of Christians.
Absolutely.
And this thing of Moran, they're exchanging gifts. We know with Christmas what we do, we're changing gifts, of course.
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see
about the ultimate gift that God gave His
Purim
Son.
is next chapter. We'll get to that. We'll get to Purim next chapter.
All right.
But what we want to focus on here is our lifestyle should reflect what Christ has done for us. We can't say we're Christians and not
be joyful.
Yeah, because there's no such thing as a non-joyful Christian. You can't. You're missing a whole thing. Now, going back to this story, I mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again. One of the coolest things about this is that God took a really horrible situation, a situation that looked like a dead end. A decree is a dead end.
Yeah, sentence.
And He changed it. He flipped it completely. Why? And how? And that's what I want to end up with. Why and how?
His people respect Him and loved Him and put their trust in Him.
Okay.
And
what else?
Left it to Him.
Okay. What else? Yes, you're right. What else?
What was the question?
How and why did God
intercede?
Not intercede. Did intervene completely and change this from a horrible situation? Yeah.
Maybe because they show that their faith was just as strong.
Exactly. You nailed it. Because the whole story from the beginning, we see that
who was that?
Jacob.
I like that kid.
He's a great kid. The whole story we see that faith is very involved here. Mordecai stood up against Haman. Or actually, he didn't bow down for Haman, which is actually standing up against him. And we see, because of that, negative actions, to the point where Haman was about to kill Mordecai. And the book hit a really low point. If we stopped at that low point, this would have been a very depressing book. I wouldn't have ever read it again.
Nothing to look forward to.
That's it. It would have ended there. So regardless of what's going on in our lives, there's always going to be negatives in our lives. Always. It's always going to be something tough. Always going to be a feeling of a dead end, a feeling of hitting rock bottom. Regardless of the situation, this book shows that real faith, just like he said, faith in God
to the end
can change any situation. Any situation. So as dreadful as we may feel this week with everything that's happening, faith in God will save the country. As horrible as the situation may be at school, at work, with our families, whatever, God can change the situation. This just shows us, because there's no more of a dead end, more of a rock bottom than this a decree from the king of basically the world.
Another example here for us to draw is that God always comes at the end. He allows everybody to come in, make their opinion, do their play, and then he says, "Is everybody done? Is everybody okay?"
But Jacob, I have to disagree. Because I don't believe that God works in our timing. God works in the best time. God is outside of time, and we talked about that before. And I think Michael brought it up about the idea of did she know? Did she not know when with everything that was going on? Did she have a plan when she came up with these banquets or not? We have to understand that we are at this level and God is through the roof.
Yeah.
We can't understand God fully.
He's not our way.
He's not our way. Remember, we talked about the idea of there's logic and theologic. God logic is very different than man logic. So what we have to see here is God will take care of it. But here's my question. And there's no right or wrong answer here. Would God have left this? Let's say Mordecai, this happened, the decree passed, the first decree. Mordecai didn't die. Mordecai just, didn't go and tell Queen Esther. Queen Esther didn't do anything about it. Remember, there was a back and forth with Queen Esther until she finally said, "If I perish, I perish. Fine, I'll do whatever you tell me."
To death.
But here at this point, let's say Queen Esther said, No, I can't do that. I'm in a really good position right now. I'm the queen of the world. Why risk my life? Why risk my life? If she stopped there, would God have saved the Jews?
He would have waited for Esther.
Huh?
He would have.
No, hold on.
He would have waited for Esther until she talks.
What if Esther decided no?
He would have. Because Mordecai said to her, "If you don't, we'll get somebody else."
Exactly.
So right there, there it is.
So God wasn't going to leave the Jews. God will protect us. But here's my point. We still need to ask God. We still need to ask God. In the Old Testament, we also see Sodom and Gomorrah. God was so loving that He still had a discussion with Abraham where they had like a negotiation. It was like a business meeting. And they talked to him. And he said, "If I find 50 people."
Abraham.
And then what happened?
Yeah.
It kept, hold on. It kept what?
Lower.
Going down until what?
3, 4.
10. No, it went lower than 10 too.
Yeah, it was lower.
It went lower than 10. And then finally, they couldn't find anyone. And then what happened? he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Here's different though. He couldn't find anyone righteous. When he couldn't find people who were righteous before, when he only could find Noah, what did he do?
Flooded it.
Flooded the whole world, and he said, I'm going to start over. So, in this same aspect, God would have saved these people regardless. But Esther took the blessing by stepping up. And we sang the song, Here I Am, Lord.
Yeah.
The same idea.
Like Isaiah.
Here I am. Yeah, just like Isaiah.
Yeah. Who will go for us?
God's going to do what He's going to do regardless.
There you go.
And I think us having like the relationship with God that allows us to like ask and pray for things is our window into His action. Like I think when we pray and we ask for things, that's when we realize, okay, like this is God acting.
Yes, but but then that takes us into a whole long discussion, which I don't want to open it up.
Yeah, I was contemplating.
Like in predestination and God gave us the answer. Was it the 10? Oh. God gave us the best gift ever in free will and choice. He has foreknowledge, but it doesn't stop us from making decisions.
Right. Well, the decision that we make is whether we participate or not.
Yes and no, because we still have a say in which direction we go. Like, God doesn't say, I'm going to be a good Christian person, a faithful person, regardless of my decisions. If I make it gets really tricky because we can't get caught up in that, because again, God is above our thoughts and our mind and time itself. So like some people say, why should we pray for something that already happened?
Yeah.
Because God is outside of time. Yeah. Hold on. No, go ahead, Negi. Go ahead. You next.
Yeah, I'm saying from other point about Mordecai. I think he's the man of this book.
I agree.
His name,
I agree.
Not against the woman.
Yeah.
But I think he brought the level of faith to other level.
Absolutely.
By what happened.
And his faith helped her faith.
Yeah, I'm thinking, what if he failed? What will happen? Buna, you asked if after she didn't do anything. I think if Haman, he just regret and he said, sorry, I didn't mean anything, and he went to Haman and cried, and he did as we all do.
Yeah. That's the beauty.
Yeah.
That's why a book like this.
That will make the salvation from other ways.
Absolutely. No, we have to know that for sure.
Yeah.
But what the beauty of a book like this is, it's a story.
And sometimes in our life we fail.
Yep.
Because not all the time we are.
Oh, absolutely. But when we fail,
yeah.
I used this example last week. GPS. We have a direction. We have an address. We put it in the phone and we're going. And it says, make a right. In 1,000 feet, make a right. And I ignore this annoying voice and I make a left.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But sometimes we cannot. Sometimes GPS continues says, when possible, make U-turn.
Yeah.
Are you still with people? But still we cannot.
Yeah.
Yeah. For example, as Abraham did in Egypt, he lied and he said about Sarah, she's my sister.
Yeah.
He cannot go back and say something else.
But we have consequences.
Yeah, yes. Sometimes we are doing something, we cannot go back.
Sure, but our consequences doesn't mean it's the end.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like that's the point that we have to know. Like, God is a God of second chances, and not second chances meaning my second chance and I'm done, because then we would have all been in trouble a long time ago. But God is a God of chances,
second chances,
all the time throughout the gospel. We see that. So yes, there's consequences, but there's always salvation at the end. Yeah.
This is kind of unrelated. I was confused about the significance of like the girl who looked back and saw them in Gomorrah.
Mhm.
She like turned to ash.
Because he told her, Lot's wife, she disobeyed. So it was a punishment because of her obedience.
Don't turn around.
They said right before that, don't look behind. Don't turn around. Like, leave your past in the past and go straight forward. So she didn't listen. She turned around, and that was the punishment. Yeah.
She doubts.
Regarding the two laws that happened, I think if at some point we got reverted that law, we wouldn't have that book right now. But actually, like, now we have two laws as a reminder that in the beginning this happened. A few months later,
Perfect.
we got along to revert it.
Perfect. And not just to revert it, to add, like, this was more of a positive. Absolutely. Sorry, Nancy.
Yeah, I don't know if this is like a right perspective, but in regards to like, had Esther not done it or had Mordecai not done it, I always feel like it's a human perspective. Like, we're focused on the milestones. Like, okay, I got to this status or I got to this point, versus God is more concerned with how did your character develop through the journey, because that's really, he doesn't care. He is a God of second chances. He doesn't care whether you get there or not. He cares during the process if you did it with him.
To go on.
Yes, but we sometimes look at getting there as a destination, as a milestone. It's not a milestone. Our relationship, just like any relationship, getting close to a friend. Do you ever reach a point where, like, I did it, I got an achievement, I got a badge, like, what you don't get a higher level. It's a continuation. So in this case also, we see that in Mordecai. We see his faith, we see Esther's faith grow, and like Nagy said, from Mordecai. We're there to encourage each other. Yeah, last thing, because
the book of Esther should give us an example as becoming an intercessor. She was an intercessor.
Yes.
And that hit me. The Holy Spirit slapped me with that. And because when you said, when we go to God and ask for things, so there's two ways to go to God. One is to go to ask what you want, and the other one go on an intercessory thing.
We talked about intercessions.
When you become an intercessor person, you are working for God. You're working. So you're between God and these people.
But
we have to always know God's in charge. Yeah. Nick.
When I think something of this is not the aim. I mean, just when I read the full story, I feel like end of the movie happily ever after, and they live in peace. But I think no, Mordecai and Esther, they face a lot of troubles after.
Of course.
And their life,
Yeah.
and a lot of face challenge again.
Yeah.
But still, it's not written in the book. Because sometimes we think when we just one pass one exam in faith, we feel like we are.
That's perfectly said.
Nothing will happen after that. We will live with God.
Perfectly said.
But this will never happen.
Yeah. So and just to close, because we're late.
Okay. This is the last.
No, hold on. The one thing is, I agree with you, and I think that's always that's there to remind us that regardless of the situation, we fall, we get back up. We fall, we get back up. We fall, we get back up.
Right.
In God.
Right.
Like God is going to always, if we go to Him, He's always turn us around.
Yeah. None of these books close. These books are happening as we speak right now. Christians are getting slaughtered and murdered, and churches are getting burned right now.
Yeah.
So this book is open.
Sure.
This book is not closed. So now we become Esther, and we become intercessors, and we look at the situation and we pray to God to do
exactly.
something.
And that's what we're doing.
This book is open.
And glory be to God forever, amen. And that's what we're called to do this week, specifically, and
pray
for the next couple of months, to pray for the country as much as we can.
Christians.
Let's be Esther's to the country.